The Bucks versus the Nuggets did not disappoint. Shoot, Giannis versus Jokic did not disappoint. It was a close game throughout until the Bucks took control in the second half, in particular the fourth quarter, and they did not relinquish that lead. How did the Bucks up they play in the second half? We're going to discuss that plus more on the other side of the intro.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do, Bucks fans? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and co-host of the Technical File podcast. Joining me is Van Fayaz, managing editor of BrewHoop.com, and we appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube, and you can catch us in newsletter form as well. Into your inbox Monday through Friday, the Locked On Bucks daily newsletter. Sign up for free right now if you have not yet already at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, Van, thank you for joining me, by the way, on this post-game pod, a real fun one in Milwaukee against the Nuggets, a game where we saw all five Bucks starters finish with double-digit scoring, plus you had Gary Trent Jr. drop 15 off the bench. Impressive win with the Bucks being up like 11, 12 points with about 4 minutes left in the game and responding, even with the Nuggets getting that margin down to 5. They could not get it any closer because the Bucks were able to continuously respond. And I just want to start here because seeing two of the best players in the world hit the court and compete against each other is always a joy. Like Giannis paced the Bucks tonight with 28 points. He had a season high 19 rebounds, 7 assists. I should have played his PRA and prize picks and not just his points. And Jokic had another triple-double in this one. But what did you see from Giannis tonight on the national stage against Jokic and the Denver Nuggets when they pulled out this big win?
Well, just a fantastic dunk in the last 30 seconds, right? That just came out of nowhere. He was like a speeding blur up the court and then threw it down. And then it looked like he mugged for the camera afterwards, but not a TNT camera. We didn't see, but I'm sure we'll see some what is his visage was that. Exactly. It looked mean.
It was.
But before that, actually, I think the 2 free throws he hit there when they had cut it to 5, huge. And then the next time down the court, I think it was, he hit that 17-footer kind of from the elbow. 2 really big shots late in the game. I mean, you figured to close it out when it got to 5, it's like, okay, it's a Dame time. And to be fair, Dame did kind of hit the dagger in this one. But I thought Giannis's free throws and buckets in that, I think it was around that 2 to 3 minute range. Those were huge. But throughout the rest of the game, I mean, it was really just, I thought at points in the second half, it was just kind of barbecue chicken for him. When he saw I don't know, Christian Brown down there, maybe
he had one against Murray that was nasty.
Yeah, Murray too. And maybe also seeing Strother down there. He's like, these guys are too small, and I'm way more athletic than these kids. So you could tell he takes this matchup pretty seriously. This is a dude who kind of snatched an MVP away from him. I mean, he finished, I think, 4th or 5th that year that Jokic got his first, but maybe the year after that, it could have been Giannis's. I think he takes it very seriously playing against Jokic. Jokic is just such a joy to watch. I mean, offensively, I mean, he's just so crafty, and he can shoot it from anywhere. Obviously, only takes 2 threes tonight, but I this year when he shoots a 3, I just kind of assume it's going in. But so much down low for him tonight too. And I don't want to blaze Jokic too much. This is a Bucks podcast, but it was it did live up to its billing, I think. And I mean, I would say Giannis, he got the dub, so I don't really care that Jokic had the game high 32. Giannis was, I think, the more dominant player, certainly physically, and he had some good defensive plays too. I thought that Jokic wasn't gonna really do, and Jokic turned the ball over 5 times too. So yeah, it was Giannis's game.
Yeah, and that defense that you pointed out, that tends to be a big difference, especially when you hear Bucks fans always have that debate about the argument of here's why we view Giannis as being a better player. And I'm not trying to hash that argument out in full now, but when you look at the way that Giannis can affect the game defensively as well, and then you see plays like in this game where Jokic just takes the play off defensively from time to time there, but like it's not to take away from what Jokic can do with the ball in his hands, because he is just an offensive genius, not just scoring, but setting up his teammates, getting everyone else involved. He's, like you said, he's truly a joy to watch. I like watching high level hoops. And I like that you brought up that Dame had that dagger late in the fourth quarter, because it was a really big play for the Bucks. And when you look at the box score alone, or you watch the game, like it wasn't a heavy dose of Dame in this game. He only took 9 shots throughout the game, finished with 19 points because he was able to get to the free throw line 6 times, was perfect at the line there. What did you think of how the Nuggets were playing Dame? Because we've seen this strategy before with teams just trying to get the ball at Dame's hands, make someone else make a play. So how do you think that the Bucks and Dame responded to this? Because Dame was able to hit some key shots, not even just that fourth quarter one, which was the dagger, but even to end the first quarter to tie it all up at 30, all that deep three that he had. Like, how'd you think of Dame's play tonight?
Yeah, that buzzer beater was pretty nice.
Yeah.
I thought, they were kind of denying him at certain points, but I was impressed just with his straight line drives that he had. Most of those seemed to be, I guess, kind of like the second half. I can't remember, but he had a few that were really nice. So he was just kind of taking what they were giving him. He got 1-3 in the corner, and then just spent the rest of the game kind of taking the shots in that, like, just above the break area, kind of on the right wing. And he hit some big ones. I think he was not like super involved as a facilitator in this one. Interesting to see that Kuzma got one more dime than him.
Yeah.
I thought he actually made some. I thought he made some good defensive plays too. He got a couple steals, and we were talking about it. Yeah, he turned the ball over 4 times in the first quarter. There's some wacky stuff in that first quarter, but then he did not turn the ball over the rest of the game. He played 35 minutes, so we're talking another, I guess, like 23 minutes, no turnovers, and he racked up some assists, and he scored about 14 of his points during that time. So, yeah, I thought it was an effective night from him, if just a quiet one.
I think that's a great way to sum it up. Ineffective, even if it's a quiet one from Dame. And to your point about the first quarter, the 4 turnovers, he had a few where it was like he was doing that thing where he penetrates, he touches paint, he drives, and he would find himself in the air and then just tosses. Like, didn't really know where you're going with the ball at the time. A bad turnover. And something I've been talking about with this Bucks team that I look at a lot, it's just like, what is the body language after a mistake or after you don't get a call? Are you staying back down there to complain, to gesture to the refs, or are you getting back? Because throughout the first half of this game, not just a Dame problem at all, but like the Bucks were just slow at times in the first half to get back. And at halftime, I said, like, to myself, the Bucks just have to execute the effort plays better. They have to get back on defense. They got to box out. They got to play with pace and stop moving the ball casually, like the example of getting in the air, nowhere to go, and just kind of flinging the ball up. Like, you got to play with a purpose. And I thought in the second half, you saw them play with a lot better purpose and just come up with some big plays. So after this, I want to talk more about what we saw from the Bucks in the second half that helped them secure this win against the Denver Nuggets. This episode was brought to you by FanDuel, because when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there is no better place to get in on that action than at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, You can even combine your live bets into a single game parlay. Like FanDuel's live betting feature is pretty dope because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. So like you can be on the app backing your team, trying to make sure they can have a late game rally, or you can pick a player to hit a clutch three, and you'll never feel like you missed your chance because everything is in front of you. Plus, the app is easy to use. So when you win, you get paid instantly. And y'all know every dayers know that's my favorite part of all of this. Getting paid instantly, need the dollars quickly. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Second half Bucks, man. I was like, this, they just played with better pace in the second half. And after the game, during the presser, Doc Rivers mentioned a little bit of the same. And the point where he started was just the physicality of the game. And Doc said, and I quote, "It was a well played game, a physical game, and I was disappointed after the Rockets game because I thought we didn't play. Like, we're the bigger team, and they were more physical, and that bothered me. And tonight you had two big teams, and I thought that we were the more physical team. In the first half, I thought they were the more physical team. In the second half, we turned that around." And one area you can point to, Van, to see that is the free throw disparity, because the first half felt like the refs were really letting a lot of play go. Like, guys were out there just playing. The Nuggets were 4 of 4 from free throw in the first half. The Bucks were 7 of 7 from the free throw line. In the second half, the Nuggets were 5 of 7 from the free throw line. The Bucks were 16 of 21. What did you see from the Bucks in the second half that just had you go like, okay, they are picking it up, and I see why they're coming out with the victory here?
You know, the first thing I noticed was actually rebounds. Now, in the
Mm,
first quarter, they gave up 8 offensive rebounds to the Nuggets. Ends up, of course, they're always the Bucks are the worst offensive rebounding team in the league. They're always
right.
going to finish on the short side of that equation, 14-7. But second half they came out, and I thought they visibly were rebounding the ball with more authority, and it shows up in the numbers too in the third quarter. They have 15 boards to the 13 for Denver. Only 2 offensive rebounds for Denver on both sides. So I thought maybe that was maybe a point of emphasis at halftime.
Mhm.
I thought they were doing a good job in the second half of chasing Denver off the line a bit too. Like, I saw them do that to Murray a few times, who in the second half, he came alive a little bit more, but I thought they were doing a pretty good job of, especially in that fourth quarter,
Mhm.
making him like, you know, take a mid-range shot instead of like a wing three. So the rebounding I thought was a part of it, but I mean, the shooting disparity between the halves is pretty impressive too from deep. The Bucks were 5 and 19 in the first half. That's 26%. They shoot 9 of 15 in the second half. That's 60%. So they end the game shooting a pretty like typical kind of healthy clip of around
Mhm.
41%. So I think those were maybe the biggest things I noticed, at least right away. Maybe not as much like their interior play. And one thing that's interesting to note is uh, in transition, they were, of course, they struggled a little bit to defend in transition, especially in that first half. But
Yeah,
the
they
Bucks
did.
got out in transition quite a bit more than the Nuggets actually did. They are outscored 32-16 on the fast break. They get doubled up, but the Bucks are only 6 of 15 on the break tonight. We'll talk about a certain player who may have had a thing or two to do with that, I think, in a bit. But overall, like, they won the possession battle tonight. So I know that's something that you and Frank and Justin talk about a lot. Like, they even with the extra couple, 7 offensive rebounds and just only 2 fewer turnovers, they end up with 2 more possessions tonight than Denver. I think that's an important thing when you're outscoring. You're being outscored 68-42 in the paint. You are outscoring
Mhm.
them from 3, but only by about 15 points. so it's not really making that up. But when you're playing a little more physically on the boards, especially taking care of the ball, which they were doing a much better job of in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was so in the first quarter, 6 turnovers by the team. The rest of the game, only 5. So
Cleaned
the
it up.
possession battle, I think, was in their favor tonight. That's not something we always see.
It's not. And the only way that the Nuggets were kind of able to really keep pace with that, given that they didn't really just out and out, flat out win the possession battle, was using those offensive rebounds and just getting more shot attempts. Like they were able to get 15 more shots up than the Bucks were able to get in this game. But because of the Bucks being able to get the edge from the 3-point line in this game and the edge in the free throw line, they were able to overcome that a bit throughout this one, because to your point, the Nuggets were pretty dominant in the paint. They won the paint points 68-42 over the Bucks in this one. So the Bucks had to find different ways to win. And when talking about the two halves, I thought 2 players in particular had really interesting halves, where the first half was one way, second half looked a little bit different. And those 2 guys are Brook Lopez and Kyle Kuzma. Now, before I start, Van, who do you want to start with, Brook or Kuz?
Let's start with Brook. Because
Okay.
it's interesting because here's a little behind the scenes. I had to watch the first half of this game after the second half, just because I of my schedule today. So I was watching the second half, and I was quite impressed with Brook Lopez. And then I'm texting with you, and you're saying, yeah, he said kind of had a mixed bag of a game. It's like, oh, well, I have to see what happens in that first half. So let's start with Brook.
Yeah, that first half, it felt like Jokic just had his way. And that's going to be the case a lot of times, because Jokic is just that type of dude. Like, he is going to get his, but it looked like Brook was just a step slow at times trying to defend Jokic off the dribble. Some of the shot selections, one could question from Brook down the stretch there, but I felt like Brook still had big impact plays, especially in the second half there. He was able to keep pace a little bit scoring wise in the first half. That dropped off a little bit in the second half, but he was able to get to the free throw line, still find ways to impact the game. And overall, it was like, this was a mixed bag Brook game, but I would actually lean towards it being more good than bad in this particular one. Is that crazy to say after how he started this one off?
I think you're right. I mean, you look at the numbers, even in the first half, like on offense, he's got 12 points on 4 of 8 shooting, hit a 3, he gets to the line 3 times. He doesn't shoot that well from deep tonight, only 1 of 6, but 22 points on 16 shots. Just finishes just below a basket below 50% in the field. It's not like it's an efficient game. It's the kind of like a 22-point game, and he's their second leading scorer. You take that every time from Brook Lopez, and it's just kind of funny. It's like they had 6 guys in double figures tonight, the Bucks, and Brook Lopez, their second leading scorer, but he wasn't doing his damage from deep, which is usually how he racks up the points. It was at the line, and of course, like 5 of those free throws came in the second half. I think overall, it's a good game for him. As you said, it's just no one really can deal with Nikola Jokic. There were some of those little step throughs he had, and also just maybe offensive rebounds where guys are up in the air, and he can just very easily sashay around even someone who's like 7'2", 280 pounds, just because he's somehow at his size too has that agility. So I mean, it's not like I give him a pass defensively, but like it's hard. This is one of the best. This is the best passing big man we've ever seen. This is maybe the most complete offensive big man we've ever seen. 32. Honestly, like 32 points. That's and like a triple double. That's just kind of middle of the road for Nikola Jokic. As crazy as that sounds. So yeah, I think he ends up for the game. Actually +6. So like when he was out there and they were matching his minutes pretty like to the T with Jokic. So
Brook played 37 minutes tonight. Yeah,
he led the team in minutes. I guess I don't know if maybe it was a second or 2 more than Kuzma, but both of them at 37 minutes. And yeah, I mean he was out there basically the entire time that Joker was, and I can't really complain about it if they're outscoring like they're outscoring is on the floor because Jokic is -5. So there you go, +6, -5.
Yeah, that's how it shook out for Brook tonight. And the other guys, Kyle Kuzma, as I mentioned before, during the broadcast, it was said that there was an interview with Kyle Kuzma, and he mentioned that he sees himself as a Swiss Army knife for this team. And I thought that that was a perfect way to try to capture what it is that Kuz brings to this team, because he started the first half. He was the leading scorer at halftime for this Bucks team. And then the offense became really difficult. But even with the offense becoming difficult for Kuz, I thought that he still made an impact in that second half. So let's break down Kuz's play as well as these Kuz plus bench lineups that we keep seeing. As the sample size grows, what more can we learn? More of that after this. All right. Kuz. This man here, he was 0 for 6 from the field for 3 points in the second half after going 5 of 9 for 13 points in the first half. Like I said, he led the team in scoring at halftime, but I thought that he was still able to really impact the game throughout the second half, which is his ball movement, his defense, and him thinking of himself as a Swiss Army knife. I think is the perfect way to describe what this Bucks team is going to need from Kuz going forward.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and kind of look at some of his defense. I know I saw him switching on, or maybe even taking the assignment on Murray a few times up the court. I was getting flashbacks to Tuesday. Was that Tuesday's game in Houston?
With the Rockets.
With the missed layups in transition there. In the first half he was driving inside and he was 2 for 2 in the restricted area. Pretty good. He goes 0 for 3 in the restricted area in the third quarter. It misses another bunny in the fourth. And I thought even Giannis had a little trouble inside there in the fourth quarter there. Just maybe some of the entry passes to him were a little bit too deep. Regardless, yeah, Kuzma. I mean, I think he was not a detrimental player by any means. And in the second half, he is a team high plus 12. And for the game, he's the team high again, a game high plus 19. So I can't really, even though the shooting line 5 of 15, and of course, like most of that coming in the second half, I can't really like get too mad about it just because, he does have he's 16, 9, and 5. He's doing a good job on the boards as he always does. He's distributing a bit. He has some nice passes. Did he have? Well, he was on the receiving end, I think, of that little set that volleyball pass from Lopez in the first half. There were a few of those though. Just little touch passes inside. I want to say he had one of them too. And he had a couple blocks. I think those all came in that first quarter, maybe, or first half. I can only really remember him. So he's that's one of those. It's one of those games you'd love in fantasy. Like he's got a couple blocks, I guess no stocks, but he's got a bunch of rebounds and assists and stuff. It was also, I would say, like kind of a quietly effective night for him, even though some of those like missed bunnies kind of might stick out raw a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Kuz experience though. But the Kuz plus bench lineups, it seems like Doc is being really intentional with these lineups. Thought initially part of it was just out of necessity, given that Giannis is on a minutes restriction still as we currently speak. There's no Bobby Portis. They're just kind of shuffling things around. So it's like, how can we just kind of steal some minutes while Dame and Giannis get their rest? But listen, this lineup, it was a mixed bag in the second quarter when they started off. That was a lot of Kuz just really using his physicality, using his length, his size, athleticism to get some buckets for the Bucks there. But in the second half, in the fourth quarter, when they started off with that Kuz plus bench lineup with AJ Green out there and Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr., like they helped spark this win for the team, in particular, the play of Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green. So what did you see from these two key important Bucks pieces down the stretch?
Yeah, in the first half, it was Kuzma carrying that lineup. It may have been the exact same group that started the second quarter as started the fourth.
It was exact same.
But in the fourth quarter, they enter up 3, and before before Giannis and Dame and Brook Lopez all check in around the 7-minute mark, they end up getting up 9. So like I'll take that every time. It was on that I think the second 3 that Green hit, and those were his only 2 buckets of the game. I thought those were just absolutely massive threes because
timely.
Yeah, very timely, and like if you're getting up like 9 points with that lineup out there, I think that's fantastic. And then not Kuzma, Trent, he had that nice breakaway steal and layup, had a floater in there too. So it was really Gary who was kind of carrying that in the second half. He has 10 points in the second half. He only 5 in the first. I like, as you know, I'm a big Gary Trent Jr. fan. I want to see him looking for his own shot a bit more aggressively, and also for them to be drawing up offense for him a bit more in these moments, like these second unit lineups. When, especially now, when like there's a minute restriction on Giannis, and it's interesting because in that third quarter, like I texted you, it's like, is this still a minutes restriction? Like Giannis is
out here.
Doc does this a lot, where in the third quarter, which is of course like this infamous quarter for the Bucks this year, he'll keep his starters out there quite a while, and it wasn't until Prince came out pretty early, but or maybe I was looking at the fourth quarter. Sorry, no. Yeah, Prince was the only one who played under 9 minutes. Giannis is out there 10. Lopez and Dame play the entire quarter, and I'm thinking like, okay, this is how he is. This is how he wants to stagger, like with these. He's not staggering, I guess, with these minutes restrictions because they're coming. Then they check back in at the same time too. Like, is it like kind of a move to like, you know, it's like sort of like going for it. And that was a very nice third quarter. It did kind of work. I mean, Giannis was great in the third, and Dame hit a bunch of shots too. It's funny because when that starting lineup comes out of half struggling, like you'll see an early timeout from Doc, but then he'll just keep them out there for a few more minutes, and I'm like, is that like a punishment? Is it like you got us into this mess, now you got to get us out of this?
It always feels like a stop. Hold on, y'all. Reset.
Yeah.
Just focus.
Yeah. Right. But then like he rides them sometimes really deep into the in the core, and he did that tonight. So that puts even more pressure on this second unit grouping with Kuzma and the 4 reserves. But I thought it was just a lot more effective tonight when it wasn't Kuzma trying to like get his own shot, and he was a little bit more like deferential to others. Kevin Porter, he even, he got a couple assists there in that fourth. So did Kuz, like in those minutes there. So they were really looking, I think, to set up certainly Green and Trent, and those guys didn't miss. They were 5 for 5 in those minutes. So I think, you got to balance out, I would say, having like Kuz be the guy with that second unit group, and also maybe just giving those 2 shooters a bit more, like a few more plays.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And look, in that fourth quarter run there, the bench scoring was so important for this Bucks team, because going into halftime, the Nuggets bench outscored the Bucks bench 20-8. And we've had conversations on Locked On Bucks before of like, we don't expect the Bucks bench to be like this big offensive fire-powered machine where they're running it up. Normally we're like, just please don't lose the lead. At bare minimum, keep it even. Even. And in this game, like I said, the Nuggets bench really took off in the first half. A lot of that came from Westbrook, because I thought Denver started the game off pretty lazy. And then when Westbrook came in, the energy changed. He was like 8 points in 4 minutes, 3 or 4 from the field, but he finished the game 1-9 after having a hot start to the first quarter. Meanwhile, on the Bucks side of things, you had AJ Green score his 6 points in the fourth quarter. You had AJ Green or Gary Trent Jr. come out in the fourth quarter, score his 7 points. And Jericho Sims had his lob or his finish, at the rim there.
He was playing volleyball earlier too.
Right. Yeah, that one, the lob, he's hanging in the air for the lay, then he missed and came back for the putback and still couldn't get it. I said he had too much hang time on that one.
Right.
To see the Bucks bench, right, too athletic. But to see the Bucks bench respond in the fourth quarter, it helped put the game away. And that's how it's going to have to be for this Bucks team. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same guy every night, because we've seen during this stretch coming out of All-Star break, Kevin Porter Jr. is that guy who just takes off for a little bit. But the Bucks are going to need a guy or two coming off the bench to make sure they're able to do something in this game with the way this team is constructed. Doesn't have to be the same guy every time, but you need something from someone. So I thought it was really encouraging just to see the bench step up down the stretch here, to see Giannis continue to do his thing, to see Dame get into the action down the stretch. Brooke, just an overall solid group win for this Milwaukee's Bucks team. As we mentioned, they had 6 different players in double-digit scoring. A real solid win, especially with the way that the Pistons are playing and the Pacers are playing. You got to keep these wins rolling. And it's nice to see the Bucks get a win over a top opponent. So before we get out of here, Van, really quick news here. We did see that the Bucks signed Pete Nance to their two-way spot after dropping Liam Robbins from the squad. Any quick thoughts that you have on the addition of Mr. Nance to the team?
I actually was looking at free agent bigs the other day because as I was writing about, and I think maybe y'all were talking about this week, the Bucks can actually open up a second roster spot this weekend by moving Bobby Portis to the suspended list. After 5 games, you can put him there. So they already have 1 roster spot open, and it's important to note Ryan Rollins, even though he did not get in the game tonight, that was the final game of his 50-game allotment on his 2-way deal. So if the Bucks wanted to play him anymore, starting on Saturday, he needs to be under a standard contract. They have an open roster spot for that. But also on Saturday, that'll be the 6th game that Portis misses, so they can create a roster spot there. So I'm thinking, okay, they might look at another big. What bigs are on the market right now who have actually played an NBA game this year? Not too many. You have like Mo Bamba. There was that Colin Castleton, some guys who had been cut from 2 ways. And Pete Nance was one of them. He played 7 games for the Sixers this year. He's big. He's the biggest Nance, I think. He's 6'11". So someone who can obviously play the 5. He's not, he's not a Larry Nance. Like the 2 Larrys were, like one is a legendary player. He's got his number retired in Cleveland, and the other is was an elite role player in the NBA for several years. He's not going to give you that, but Robbins never really showed much once the season got started. So, and he had been injured. I forget what it was. It was maybe a wrist or an ankle towards the end of January. He hadn't even been playing in the G League. So, probably wasn't going to give him much. Nice to have a little extra big man depth and, similar size, but a little bit more NBA experience and someone who could shoot it a little bit in college. Just like I'll take someone with the Bucks needing some offense in the front court, even though he's not going to probably play too much. I'll take that over Robbins, who doesn't really have much of a jumper.
Shout out to Robbins, though. I know he was a favorite of Frank Madden throughout the preseason, but we'll always have those preseason moments. And I feel like that's a good place to wrap up Locked On Bucks for the day. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to the show this week. We will be back on Monday with more content for you, talking about that Mavericks game. Hopefully another Bucks win along the way. So for Van and myself, we will catch you all later. Take care, everyone.